I cannot stress enough how important it is to know your neighbors. I talk about it all the time, but I grew up when I was really little. I'm sure you guys did too. Everybody played with each other. There were no fences. Everybody knew each other. And now, if we walk outside and we make eye contact with somebody across the street, it's like blinders up. We're terrified. Oh no, who was that? They looked at me, right? And we're also in that age where we just, our eyes are always down, focused on our phones. We don't realize the benefit of knowing your neighbors. And this isn't just for disaster preparedness. This is just for awareness in general. This piggybacks and dovetails on the now I lost the name of it, the neighborhood watch programs that are out there. Knowing your neighbors is important. Being aware of your surroundings, having casual conversations with your neighbors, building that sense of community with everybody around you is what's going to make you resilient after a disaster, whatever it is. Because you can have all the supplies and goods possible in your house, and then a big earthquake hits and you somehow get pinned in your household and you can't get access to that food, and you haven't talked to any of your neighbors, so they don't even know you really exist. They just know you as that kind of hermit living in your house. Well, they're not going to come check on you because you haven't established a relationship. So establishing those connections and those relationships is what's going to make you as a community resilient to any type of disaster that might happen, any type of instance. Even if it's a resident on a block, just one resident who loses a family member or something very important, having that sense of community around you is really what's going to be beneficial and give that sense of well-being and healing to everybody or to that person. Okay, next. Oh, unless you have
you touched upon a good point, which is that we're really teaching now, not even so much how to be prepared for an earthquake as how to be prepared for a shortage of food, shortage of power, how to be prepared for the various little individual things that you might have to cope with. And yes, it adds up to an earthquake. Part of it also adds up to wildfire. Part of it adds up to et cetera, et cetera. But it really is just, it's not this big pile of things to think about. It's really just a bunch of simple little things and kind of getting into that mindset that gets you prepared.
So on this next one, it's like, how do I engage my neighbors? I want to do more than just talk to my one neighbor. I want to engage my whole block. Okay, right now during the pandemic, we're not going to be having barbecues, hanging out with each other. We still want to practice very smart social distancing. Obviously, but before the pandemic happened, we had some great people that tried really hard to engage their neighbors, because we had people that were like, oh, nobody wants to come over and talk about emergency preparedness. And we realized that you can't approach it with that. You cannot go to your neighbors and be like, we need to get prepared for an earthquake, because they're not going to want to sit down and have a meeting about that. They're just not going to want to. You need to go and say, hey, I'm having a barbecue and we're doing a potluck or whatever it is. And then you gather them there, and then you slip emergency preparedness or some other message in there along with it. Because then you're already talking, you're together, and then you guys are like, oh yeah, we should be concerned about this. Even if it's something simple as, does everybody have working smoke alarms? Do you know how to test your smoke alarm? I had one woman, she actually she lived on a street that had a bunch of widows on it. And she's like, these women, she's like, it took me a very long time even for them to get comfortable with me, to go up to their house and speak to them, but they were all widows. And she knew that they were a little bit of a high risk because they were aging. And so she actually came up with this brilliant idea to have soup Wednesdays. And so she brought them all together on Wednesdays, and they had soup, and they talked about all these important things about, well, what would you do? Do you have a family member that could come help you? Have you talked about this? Have you thought about this? And so I thought that was a really, really smart way, really outside of the box way of thinking about bringing you and your neighbors together. And right now too, all this preparation that we're doing, it not only goes earthquakes, wildfire, pandemic, we need to think about the public safety power shutoffs too, because that falls into all of this. And a lot of it is still the same thing. You are not going to be able to communicate the same ways as before. Your food's going to go bad because your power is going to be shut off, right? So you're going to need to be able to have a plan in place for all of those things. You're going to need to know what neighbors to check on. If you need somebody to come check on you, if you have equipment that needs power in order for you to say survive, if you sleep with a CPAP machine, all of those things that you need to plan for during a major disaster is the same thing with a PSPS.
Well, we learned last year that there are some areas that have water pumping stations into the area that such that if they lose power.
Oh, well, that's Cal Water. Cal Water, they were the first ones immediately when PG&E started saying they were going to start doing the PSPSs. Cal Water was like, all right, we're going to put some generators where our pumps are so that the water is not going to stop.
Did they get 100% coverage on that in our district?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what they were the first ones to address all those. They have the generators in places. I'm sure they're not staged at everything, but they have them in the important areas where they can dispatch them. They said that the water system is backed up if there is a PSPS, and that was before we even had a PSPS event. So good for Cal Water there.
Yeah, good for Cal Water. I know a lot of the cell phone providers are still. There are a lot of areas that will still lose cell phone coverage after several hours because their backup is batteries, and they don't have any generator plans.
And I think also too, it's important to know that we didn't always consider them to be an essential service. So by them not being recognized as an essential service, they didn't have to meet a lot of the requirements that we would have thought, having this backup power for a certain amount of time. So we're all trying to play catch up or forcing them to play catch up. So when I have residents that come to me and go, well, what about the cell phone towers? Or I have no reception or all of this, we're like, yeah, we get it. We understand. And we've been pushing the cell phone providers to work towards something better, but it's going to take some time.
Well, there are some areas that we found out last year that when they lose power, there were several homes that have landlines, and everyone has always believed that if you have a landline, you've got a piece of copper between you and the phone company, and you'll never be without a dial tone on that line. And we found out last year that there are several places up the hill where that's not true. If they lose power, they lose their landline. So, yeah, I believe the state has now mandated that the communication services are essential, but I don't think that they're done implementing all the backups that they need to keep everything running. There is what's called FirstNet out there now, which is a first responder cellular network that is reserved for first responders. You have to be a first responder, you have to be a firefighter or with a police organization or some other official first responder organization, but then you can be on that network, and it will not be overloaded, it will not go down. It's a much more hardened network in communications. So our first responders may be able to hand you a cell phone when everything else is not working. The firefighter might have a cell phone that's working. Next.
Mm-hmm.
So, what can you do today? Well, hey, get prepared to get prepared. Again, the number one thing, if you haven't done it already, right as soon as you get done with this meeting, go and get hooked up on SMC Alert. Next thing to do is spread the word to anybody who will listen in your neighborhood about this resource that you found, this class. Try to get everybody you know to come and do this and be aware that these resources exist. And don't try to do it all at once. You never can. I've been working on this for several years now, and I kind of caught fire. I'm kind of crazy on this topic, and I can only do so much in a day. And if I get my water jugs filled tomorrow, that'll be great. If I do one other little thing this week, that'll be great. Then I've done 100 things this year. If you can get that much done, you're probably ahead of me. So just try to, look around your house, get those sneakers and a flashlight in a bag under your bed. Make sure there's nothing. hanging over your bed, waiting to crush you in an earthquake. Um, it's just little things like that that'll save you from big pain. And I sure appreciate you guys attending this class today. Please, this is your resource. Yell at me, yell at Selena, yell at anybody associated with this program. Anytime you spot something you think we can be doing better, we'll try. And thank you. So we have, another thing that you can do, and this is kind of a big step, if you're all charged up and you really want to get involved and you want to learn some more advanced skills, you want to get some hands-on practice, doing things like working with a fire extinguisher, you want to actually do some of those things so that you feel like you're ready and you know how to go into action and respond. Join that team, work as a disaster service worker. About 20 hours of classwork will get you there, and you can be part of the CERT organization. That's a community emergency response team. It's a curriculum that was put together by FEMA, started in LA by the LA Fire Department after some big problems they had years back down there. And FEMA looked at what they were doing and said, boy, that makes so much sense. We're going to push that out nationwide. And they standardized that course, and it is a big nationwide effort now. And there are thousands and thousands of.
It's worldwide, actually.
Yeah, it is. It is worldwide.
It's worldwide.
And it's available in Spanish in California. And we don't actually have any Spanish instructors here, but I'm sure that there are listos programs, which is what it's called in the Spanish side. Mm-hmm. Listos is ready. We're ready. Estamos listos. But here it's WPV Cert. That's our neighborhood. That's the Cert program that covers us here, and it's making giant strides to be more effective right now. We're trying to get boots on the ground and have a real response capability, which we haven't in the past, and we would have by now if we didn't all go into lockdown a few months back. We were that close. We're actually building the command posts and whatnot, putting together the trailers and stocking it, and that's being done as I speak. So please go to the WPVCert.org site, or again, you're on the email list now. You'll get an email as soon as we figure out how to do one of those CERT programs online, because they require some more hands-on. So it needs to be split up a little differently. But we're working on that.
Lastly, too, we just want to let you know that now that we're using Zoom for everything, we have our monthly operations logistics meetings that you can get more involved in without having to drive somewhere and show up. They're all on, we do them via Zoom. They're the same date monthly. We have them on the second Wednesday of every month at 4 o'clock. And then we have 2 towns that have emergency preparedness committees that you can be a part of. CHIP is a part of one of them, Woodside and Portola Valley. All of these programs are kind of intertwined with each other, but these programs cannot function without you putting in work individually and as a community. My role especially is as a coordinator. I'm a facilitator. I cannot do all of the work. I can just help you guys all do the work and help all of us to reach the goals that we want.
Yeah, and we really need volunteers. I mean, if you feel like you'd like to do some writing for a good cause, you'd like to maybe take pictures for a good cause, or do something creative for a good cause, I just encourage you to watch your email and attend some of the meetings that we have, and you can see quickly how many more good ideas we have than we have people to help get it written up and published. So we need all the help we can get. Please don't hesitate. You can't screw it up any worse than I screwed up the video today.
No, that ain't bad. I mean, look at this CERT logo. If you have ever seen a CERT logo before, they do not look like this. He has particularly created this, thank you, Chip, by making it very, should we say, catered to our area.
Well, we've got an oak tree and sequoias and a horse. I thought if I could get that much to look good.
Instead of high-rise buildings, which
we
do.
Yeah, instead of the high-rise buildings.
All right, let's go to the next slide. So with that, everyone, I just want to say thank you so much for bearing with us. We both learned a lot on this, and thanks to Chip so much for always being there with me to help me teach these courses. It would be way too much for me to talk for almost 3 hours, and I know Chip as well. So we have a lot of fun doing these. If you guys have any additional questions, please submit them in the chat. Otherwise, Chip, if you'd like to say anything else, this is our contact info.
Yeah, seriously, send me a note anytime. This is kind of my job now. And until I retire again, this is what I do. So love to help you out.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you too.
Oh, a pleasure, a sincere pleasure. I wouldn't do this if it hurt.
Good to see you, Dave.
Thanks, Selena. Thank you both.
Absolutely.
Thank you indeed.
All right, folks.